morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. I know there are people in many different time zones. This is Mariana Sigala, one of the co-chairs of COTHI Conference Online 2021. We are in day 3, and it's really my pleasure to introduce you to our Industry Academia discussion panel with the title Destination Management in the Post-COVID Era. How can we build back better? The discussion panel is going to be chaired by Dr. Roger Carter. I had the great pleasure to meet Roger several years ago, and it was actually before the millennium. I won't disclose the exact date. It will reveal my age, but probably I'm old enough, probably not as Roger. My color painting is better than his. I can advise you later, Roger, on that. But anyway, very quick comments to introduce who is Roger. Roger has a multifunctional role. He's a tourism strategist, destination planner, marketeer, operational manager, and he has played a leadership role in the successful development of many destinations worldwide. He has experience of 25 years working with tourism authorities at national, regional, and city levels, including 15 years being a chief executive for the Edinburgh Tourism Board in Scotland. He established Team Tourism Consulting back in 1997. He has run more or less 250 projects in the UK and in more than 30 countries worldwide related to strategic planning, operations, destination development, management, and destination marketing. He has been an expert advisor for several organizations, including World Bank, OECD, the World Tourism Cities Federation, the European Travel Commission, and since 1999, he's also a consultant for the UNWTO, preparing various technical missions, publications, conferences, and so on. He has spoken in more than 60 international conferences. Now we need to add COTHI 2021 as well. And that's why his name might be quite familiar to many of you. So without further ado, I will pass you to Rogers. And I think everybody agrees that if there is a man to do this job, he's the one. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you very much indeed, Mariana. Good morning, everyone, from the city of Edinburgh in Scotland. And good afternoon to everyone in Australasia and Asia Pacific, and good evening to at least one person from North America. It's my great pleasure to introduce and to chair this session on destination management in the post-COVID era. The aim of this session, if I can move my slides, which I'm not able to at the moment. Here we go. I need to go back. Sorry about this. So the aim of this session is to understand the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic for the medium to long-term strategies and programs for destination development, management and marketing. So we're not talking about short-term recovery. We're looking to the longer term. To discuss this subject, we have a star-studded panel consisting of Dr. Mario Hardy, who's Chief Executive Officer of the Pacific Asia Travel Association, a unique international tourism organization covering the whole of the Asia Pacific region. Norbert Kettner, who is Managing Director of the Tourist Board for Vienna, one of Europe's main tourism cities, sitting right at the center of Europe. Roy Strin, who is President and CEO of Tourism Vancouver, Vancouver being one of North America's leading tourism cities and a pioneer in progressing the whole concept of tourism sustainability. And then we have Brent Hill, Executive Director of Marketing for South Australian Tourism Commission, one of Australia's leading tourism authorities. The last part of the session is going to be managed by Suzanne Becken. Suzanne is Professor of Sustainable Tourism at Griffith University and currently is working part-time for the New Zealand Department of Conservation. She is going to put questions to the panel and going to make concluding remarks. I'm going to kick off with an introductory overview, essentially as context for the presentations which follow. And in summary, I'm going to look at developments in destination management in the past, in the present, and the future. So let's start with a look back over the last 5 to 10 years. And I've identified 5 key trends. Firstly, recognition of the existential importance of sustainability in tourism, though that recognition has not necessarily been translated into action yet. Secondly, an increasing focus on integrated destination management as a mechanism for bringing together key stakeholders to develop tourism in ways which will be of maximum benefit to the people of the destination, to the tourism businesses within the destination, to visitors, and to the environment. A third key trend, and this is over a much longer period really, has been the importance of delivering memorable visitor experiences, not just to maximize visitor satisfaction, but also to help to differentiate one destination from another. A fourth key trend over the last 5 years or so has been the advent of a third wave of digital applications with potential to enhance every aspect of destination management, including, importantly, the visitor experience itself. And fifthly, and it relates to the fourth point there, increasingly effective performance measurement and management, often in real time, using digital applications, particularly artificial intelligence. Let's move on to the present, the period of the academic, which I've called the big disconnect, the disconnect between tourism as we have known it in the past and tourism as it will be in the foreseeable future. And last year, when the pandemic broke, we saw immediate consequences. For example, DMOs taking on a role of serving their local community, acting as a clearinghouse for information and services for the community. Some of those services provided by tourism businesses within the destination. And then the need in terms of tourism in the short term to focus on local and domestic markets, so that DMOs and NTOs were sometimes looking at these local or domestic markets for the first time and giving those organizations, I think particularly national tourism organizations, an awareness of domestic markets that perhaps they'd never had before. More strategically, this disconnect has created challenges and opportunities. The challenge, which we all know well, is the challenge of sustaining tourism businesses through this period and then attracting visitors back. Will we have a tourism industry in the future, and how will we get people to come back? And then the opportunity is to build back better. But the point I'd make now is this won't happen automatically. It requires strategic direction on the one hand and organic activity on the other. Now let's talk about the future. How will we build back better? And I've identified here 5 key factors in building back better. Firstly, reappraising the value of tourism to the destination in terms of quality of life in every aspect and happiness for the people of the destination. So it's not just about the money, although money will continue to be important. Secondly, real action on sustainability, translating that recognition of importance that I talked about earlier into action on the ground and indeed in the air. Thirdly, vertical and horizontal alignment of policies and programs to ensure integrated destination at every level within the country and between every level. so that all the players are working together to ensure effective destination management, which I regard as one of the foundations of tourism sustainability. Fourthly, digital transformation for individual businesses and for destinations as a whole. And that takes us into the concept of smart businesses and smart destinations working within smart cities. And fifthly, building crisis resilience into destination management. Destination managers haven't always been thinking about this in the past, but certainly the awareness is much greater now of the need to build crisis resilience into their thinking, both in terms of pandemics, such as we're seeing now, climate change and so on. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my context for the discussions today. It's the conclusion of my comments. Time is short. I'm not going to give biographies for everybody. They're on the conference website. I'm just going to hand straight over to Mario Hardy, who's going to make the first presentation. So Mario, over to you to share your screen and to give your presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Let me just share the screen. There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much, Roger, Mariana, for the introductions. And Roger, I agree with what Mariana said before. You're certainly a legend within the tourism sector. Always a great pleasure to listen to your point of views in terms of the tourism and moving forward. Over the last few months or several months, PATA has been working on its annual forecast in collaborations with Hong Kong PolyU, and I've noticed that Professor Ayan Song is actually with us today. So welcome, Professor Song, who actually helped us with this forecast. But actually what we did this year, we actually didn't really call them forecasts. We call them scenarios or scenario planning. And the reason for this is that we live in very much uncertain time. The current situation is extremely unpredictable. Things keep changing almost on a daily basis. So it's really difficult to look at the future with information that will be exact. However, what we've done is produced scenarios that look at what is the worst case scenario, the best case scenarios, and somewhere in the middle. And certainly as I stand today and with the current information that we have, it's more likely to be between the either severe or the middle in terms of the forecast moving forward. We're looking at an extensive period of time for the recovery for travel and tourism. I do, however, have some hope that by the fourth quarter this year, we're going to see some signs of recovery, but a slow recovery moving forward. So what do we need? What do we need to move forward? So what I'd like to do over the next 5-6 minutes is to focus on what are the items that we need in order to rebuild tourism moving forward. So first of all, we need standardized health and border crossing protocols. This is something that we as organizations and other international organizations such as UNWTO, WTTC, IATA, ICAO, and many others, we all collaborate together to talk to the various governments around the world to help and guide them and assist them in ensuring that we have consistency in protocols moving forward. Standardizations of protocols across either within a region, such as ASEAN, or preferably across the world over an extensive period of time. Why? Because seamless travel is really key to regaining that travel that we had before, that people really want to go and explore the world. The sentiments from our members, but also from travelers in general, is actually that people do want to travel. They're desperate to travel again and they go and explore the world. But we need several steps in order to achieve this. For the national tourism boards and the DMOs, they need financial support from the respective governments to remarket their destination, to launch new initiatives and new products that will meet the demand of the future travelers, not the travelers of the past, because their wish and desires have changed very much during this pandemic as to where they want to go and the activities that they want to do. Third is something that Roger already mentioned. Digital transformation is critical at this stage. Now, many businesses across the industry had already actually moved into the digital world, but thousands and thousands of SMEs, small businesses, were actually still in the past and have not actually migrated to a digital world. Now is the absolute time to do it, because if you don't, when you come across on the other side of it, likely your business won't survive. It is actually critical to move to a digital transformation, and again, for government institutions to help the SMEs, the businesses, to move into this new world moving forward. Fourth, tourism businesses need to focus on operational efficiencies. So if you're a business in travel today, you've probably been forced to, not because by desire, but because of the current economic situation, to transform your operations behind the scene, to make sure you're more productive, more efficient, and control your costs in a more efficient way. So many tools and many tech companies around the world will now be developing or are developing solutions to help SMEs and other businesses to become more operational efficient. Last is review your tourism measurements for success. This is something that as an industry, we've been talking for far too long. The need to actually measure success in tourism in different ways. Stop measuring only on how many visitors you have and how much are they spending. Yes, this is important. We need to continue to keep these measurements, but we need to expand this to look at sustainability, environmental impact, social impact, economic impact, jobs creations, and etc. That all needs to be part of that measurements of success for tourism moving forward. So we need to work in collaborations with other divisions and departments in the government, as well as the private sector, to ensure we have better measurement. So these are my 5 key takeaways for you to actually reflect on, and hopefully we can discuss it a little bit later on in moving forward. Before I leave, I just wanted to actually share with you a little bit of some of the work that PATA has been doing that you can access. Our Crisis Resource Center, crc.pata.org, where you'll find toolkits and resources and research that are specific to the COVID-19 crisis. All of these reports and research are available for free to anyone. You don't need to be a PATA member to access it. Just a quick glance of some of the latest research we've done. One in particular that I think will be of interest to many of you is a comparison of policy responses in Asia Pacific. And also our forecast, as I mentioned, which is now currently available to PATA. So if you need to reach me, my name is Mario, and my email is mario@pata.org. So thank you very much, and back over to you, Paul, and the rest of the team.
Mario, thank you very much indeed for your presentation, and congratulations on everything that PATA has been doing during the course of the pandemic. I think you've had an absolutely admirable program of activity supporting destinations and indeed individual businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about 3:20 a.m. in Vienna. Norbert Kettner, preferring to have a good night's sleep, pre-recorded his presentation, and Claire Dawson in the control room is now going to run that presentation for you.
Hello from Vienna. Today I've been asked to share my view on the developments we are observing as a DMMO and how we approach the scope of recovery and reimagination of Vienna's visitor economy. In October 2019, the Vienna Tourist Board presented its Visitor Economy Strategy 2025. As you all know, a lot has happened since then. Besides the fact that it would make no sense to overthrow an agreed strategy roadmap, the core aim of the Viennese Visitor Economy Strategy is still more relevant than ever. We focus on the sustainable development of the city for the good of the Viennese and all who live and work here. When it comes to the defined quantitative KPIs, we did not abandon them either.
Good, how are you?
We decided to prolong the time frame to achieve them. The Visitor Economy Strategy and its development process laid the foundation for an optimal cooperation with our partners during the pandemic, both locally and internationally. For Vienna, I strongly believe in the regenerative power of the visitor economy to help to overcome this crisis. We don't know when tourism will be fully back, but I'm sure Vienna will be on the winning side. The reason being is that our visitor economies offer is focused on people's needs and thus creates real value. This includes Vienna's cultural offering, the intellectual and economic exchange enhanced through congresses and business meetings, and the diplomatic background through its international organizations. Even after the crisis, Vienna will still be one of the most appealing cities to live, work, and visit. Nonetheless, the COVID outbreak didn't only bring demand to a halt, but has already hit the tourism ecosystem hard. The foundation for a successful restart lies in the maintaining and supporting the key tourism infrastructure, strengthening Vienna as a cultural hub and business location, and preserving the unique flair of the city. We are experiencing high demand from developers looking to convert hotel properties into residential properties. Although some 20% of accommodation businesses might close their doors forever, we expect an upgrade in Vienna's hotel industry in the long run. We already know of various new hotel projects in the coming years. Among them are global luxury brands like Mandarin Oriental or Rosewood. Many new hotel concepts are increasingly focused on neighborhoods off the beaten track. Today's city governments are very keen on developing neighborhoods and new experiential spaces. The concept of the 15-minute city of Paris, for instance, which promises convenient access to services and goods within walking distance, is just one example. These new destinations within a destination need to be designed to fit the needs of the local population and at the same time, the needs of the visitors. In any case, they become increasingly interesting for tourism projects. It is evident that Vienna, like many other cities, will be more conscious about which developments they want to support and which they do not. Proposing concepts which contribute to the sustainable development of a city and the quality of life it can offer shall become the new normal. This is also shown by the interventions of Amsterdam and Paris, backed by the European Court of Justice, which limit touristic short-term rentals due to the deprivation of living space. One of the biggest challenges we are expecting for the visitor economy is brain drain. The war for talents has been a challenge for many years already. This is further fueled by the corona crisis. Urban destinations are increasingly suffering from this factor due to the higher variety of jobs and the elevated mobility of people compared to non-urban areas. If you want to provide a prime tourism product, we need the best people. If we lose them now, they might be gone forever. We need to find a way to keep the best people in business and offer opportunities for further education and personal growth. On a longer perspective, the Vienna Tourist Board, for example, is engaging with the major universities in the city and has even collaborated with the University of Applied Science for a new master's program in urban tourism and visitor economy management, the first of its kind to be launched in September 2021. When it comes to marketing as DMMO, we knew from the beginning we must focus on our DNA, be unique and meaningful. Vienna, an international city, is constantly aiming to amplify its cosmopolitan DNA. In 2021, we are thus acting on an even broader international stage. We are not withdrawing from any of our target markets, but have opted to stay active in all 17 markets we serve so far. On top of that, we are closely monitoring 28 markets and provide our stakeholders with detailed market intelligence through an innovative data dashboard. Moreover, we will continue to act as a broadcaster, showcasing the ongoing cultural and creative excellence in Vienna. Vienna's signature events like the New Year's concert by the Vienna Philharmonic are wonderful occasions to bring our message to our international target groups. They make Vienna one of the most attractive cities when it comes to art and culture. A further focus of the Vienna Tourist Board will be on digitization and data management. If there's one positive thing about the crisis, we are managing to filter the signal from the noise and to work on digital projects that add value to the destination and its development. If we aim to collectively manage a city, we need to pull all our data together to develop a joint understanding of the necessary steps to be taken. Digitization will, moreover, support the whole tourism industry when it comes to the establishment of travel protocols or health passports. These will be prerequisites to regain our freedom of travel and make our vision of a destination that fosters quality of life, place, and experience come to life. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, I think that was a very good presentation from Norbert. He was introducing us to some real strategic long-term thinking which embraced placemaking and the sort of integrated destination management I was talking about. To some extent, almost looking at how current situation can be turned to advantage in the long term. He also introduced another key dimension of positioning tourism as a key element within the wider city economy. So Norbert isn't here to hear my comments, but I will send him thanks for an excellent presentation. Let us move westward now across the Atlantic and across North America to Vancouver. And Royce Twin is going to give us a perspective from Vancouver. Royce, welcome. We look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Roger. Let me just do a share screen here. Has that popped up full screen?
Not yet.
How's that?
Not yet, I'm afraid. Let's see if Claire can help us. Claire?
Yeah, let me just remove your co-host and redo it. So just give it a second, Royce.
Okay, just going to exit out.
Okay, now try sharing your screen.
Can you see that now?
No, have you pressed the green share screen button at the bottom of the Zoom?
Now let's try that again. Yes, I did. And it's,
There we go.
how's that? Okay, let's try this. How is this?
That's it.
Are we full screen?
No, you're in presentation mode.
Okay, how about that?
Perfect.
There we go. Thank you. God love technology. Well, thanks very much for having me this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are. It's an absolute delight to be here and part of this esteemed panel. You know, we've got 8 minutes to tackle a massive subject, building back better and sustainability working in practice. And we're doing this in the context of a global pandemic. And it's a little bit like trying to eat the entire planet Earth in one bite. So instead of a laundry list, I'd like to frame my presentation in a series of questions, if you will. Let's take some small bites out of these huge challenges that we have in front of ourselves. And the following strategic questions are many of the questions that we're asking ourselves here in Vancouver as we look to rebuild, build back better, and what sustainability means in this context. So no one scenario planned for a global shutdown of the tourism industry, which means no one has a playbook because the lived experience hasn't actually occurred in modern times. Now, the pandemic has been utterly terrible, and what it's done to our industry has been nothing short of crushing. The context for Vancouver went from 5 years of year-over-year growth, record growth, to $14.4 billion in 2019 for the Metro Vancouver area. What we're looking at in 2020 is about 4.5 billion, if we're lucky. As a result, we've been truly flatlined. What are we targeting? Well, we've done a bunch of scenarios, a low case scenario, a medium scenario, and a high case scenario. And if we're following the medium scenario, we're looking at 11 billion by 2026. That's not even getting us back to 14 billion, recognizing the damage that's been done. So the question really might be, is this about recovery or rebuilding to restart? In our minds, one means to look in the past, while the other one means to strategize for the future. Tourism Vancouver, 1905. We've certainly been around for quite some time, and we've demonstrated a level of resilience through world wars, economic crashes, even earlier pandemics, all kinds of things, and yet we're still here. In fact, we have this opportunity, and we're calling ourselves this year a 117-year-old startup organization. Meaning, instead of how we preserved what we did leading up to 2019, we have the legitimate permission to ask, what does the future need? That's our starting place to redefine purpose, relevance, and value, and to help frame sustainability in the context of the destination that is Vancouver. We're questioning what it means to be a tourism marketer versus a destination stewardship organization, or as Roger mentioned earlier, destination management organization. We've always really been a tourism marketer. So let's frame this another way. Is this about tourism marketing or destination promotion? Which invites more stakeholders to the table, the right kinds of stakeholders? Our findings in this changing this narrative in the conversation about destination promotion causes more people to lean into the conversation, whereas a tourism marketing conversation becomes exclusive, and it begins excluding stakeholders that should actually be at a promotional conversation regarding the entire destination. Should our competitive set be redefined? So for example, are we competing with other destinations on the long term for people as we look to rebuild our visitor economy? Or are we really competing with governments and media messaging as they continually share the impacts of the pandemic to the global populace? Thus, what business problem are we actually trying to solve? Be a stronger competitor and regain market share, or is this the biggest confidence rebuilding project we've ever undertaken as a population, particularly as it relates to tourism? Now, the word sustainability, tongue in cheek, might have been one of the most overused terms prior to 2020 when the pandemic hit. And now the two new words we know are pivot and unprecedented. So let's take a step back, and maybe we reframe the word or the term sustainability. Within the context of redefining our purpose, how should we actually describe sustainability? We think a big part lies in the answer of a triple bottom line approach to destination management or destination stewardship. That's simply being people, planet, and profit. How do we deliver a more balanced, sustainable portfolio? Should we or can we still focus on growth for growth's sake? Is that in fact sustainable? Is shareholder profitability the most important thing for long-term sustainability? Is or should there be something more, such as what is our bigger responsibility going forward towards our community and our residents for which we serve? What about planet initiatives? What is the importance of that within destination management? Our resources are not finite, so what role does sustainability really have in practice in a triple bottom line? So I take us back to the future, and we start with that question, and that's where we've been starting here in our destination. What, in fact, does the future need? Here's what we know. At the core of what we do, it is the fundamental movement of people. We're living in a real life situation of what happens when you put a massive kink in the garden hose of tourism mobility. How we get that to happen, how we unkink the hose, has taken on a very different context that requires us to answer or ask very different questions, to ask better questions about how we build long-term sustainability to rebuild our visitor economy. At the end of the day, we're using this ghastly situation to reevaluate everything we thought of in the past, to ask those better questions, to determine a better future in order to build an organization and a destination rooted in purpose, relevance, and value, underscoring a broader, sustainable, and actually actionable definition of sustainability. And with that, thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much indeed for a very powerful presentation, which interestingly, in a very different context, supported many of the key thrusts that we heard about from Norbert in the context of Vienna. I think very much pursuing what we have all talked about a lot in the past of tourism playing a key role within the overall city economy, the life of cities. Let's come to Australia now, get a perspective, a local perspective in Australia from Brent Hill. Brent, we're delighted to have you, and thank you for joining us. And we look forward to hearing not just an Australian perspective, but I think a marketing perspective as well. So welcome, and over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Roger. And it's definitely a pleasure to be here from a very warm Adelaide in South Australia. So just want to check that, yep, you can see that screen comfortably?
Yep.
Yep, okay. So yeah, looking at
Can you go on to full screen, Brent?
Oh, okay. Is that better now?
Not yet.
So full screen my end.
Well, carry on and maybe it will right itself. I don't know.
Okay, let's hope so. Yeah, look, from our perspective here in South Australia, I think some of the things that we've seen in terms of the longer term impact for South Australia and our tourism industry here, we think that there is obviously this impact, as everybody has commented previously, about making and seeing this damage done to our industry, and there is definitely a concern that we will actually lose some businesses, as has been commented on already. There's also this impact that in some of the areas we may actually see infrastructure actually declining a little as well, and not being able to go back to those levels that we previously saw. And I think that's definitely something that is a little bit of an issue in terms of if you don't have as many staff on board. For example, like our airports, we have an airport here in Adelaide that had gone through a $150 million expansion literally at the point of the pandemic. And so the concern is that, some of these buildings, transport, logistics, hotels, etc., may not necessarily be able to get to the full level that they were once planned for. One of the things that we're also seeing, which is a concern, is around staff, because losing staff, and then second of all, from a perspective here in South Australia, we're doing a lot of training. We're working with a lot of agents, etc. Now, if some of those agents are no longer there in that supporting distribution side of things, then again, all of that lost expertise happens for tourism. So, for example, here in Adelaide, South Australia, we're not the largest city. We are a boutique city in Australia. So it's been important for us to actually spread our message around the world to a whole bunch of different agents. And we've been working on that for years. If, let's say, 30 to 50% of those agents no longer work in tourism, a lot of that knowledge of South Australia has unfortunately disappeared, and we therefore have to build that back up again. So that's definitely a concern as well in terms of that brand recognition piece about building that back up again. Another example of this was that we have operatives around the globe, and we obviously had to reduce some of our presence overseas. And again, when we are talking to our PR companies and saying we want to talk about Adelaide and South Australia, if we're talking to an Italian market, they're saying, look, we just don't want to talk about long haul at all right now. We only want to talk about short haul. So the issue becomes, again, that over time, that 6 months, 12 months, 18 months that goes by, the brand recognition of Australia and particularly our state diminishes. So
Brent, I think we have a, sorry, Brent, I think we have a problem with your presentation. We're still on your first screen. Claire from the control room, I think, had a suggestion. Claire, are you there?
Yes, Brent, do you have two screens?
I did have. I stopped that. I'll try again. Let's see what's going on now.
So we're still seeing the PowerPoint with your slides down the side. What if you try to resume your slideshow?
Yeah, is that only showing one slide now or no?
Just the first one.
Just the first one, but we can still see your slides on the side as well, the preview of those slides.
All right, apologies, guys. I've tried to make it so it's just my PC screen, not the second screen. Apologies about this. How about now?
Right, not still the same.
Still the same. I'm not operating on dual screen. I've just got just the one. You can't see the opening slides there, no?
We've got the opening slide, but not in full screen.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I'm just operating just off my laptop on its own, and I'm looking at a full screen my end. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, carry on, Brent.
Maybe try to reshare again. Close it down and try again.
Okay, let me just try one more option. Is that any better?
Screen sharing has still to come through, but it says you've started screen sharing. Aha, we seem to be there. So we're on longer term impact slide now, but you're not.
Oh, is that better?
Mode. It's better in that you're moving through the slides, but you're not on full screen yet. We've got your next slide there as well. And if you had notes, we would be seeing those as well.
Okay.
If you just click on display settings.
Down here?
No, just up the top, on top of the main slide. Yeah. Hide presenter view. If you click hide presenter view, just see if that works. Oh, you've stopped.
Sorry. This hasn't happened before, unfortunately. Let me try one other option here. Sorry, I'll just. Which is unfortunate, just to keep to time, but
we're back to the other slides, but if you just click down the left-hand panel on the slide you want to go to, that might just be easier.
Hi, Roger, it's Susanna here. Can you hear me?
Good to hear you, Suzanne.
Ah, it's good to hear you too. That's a relief.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, that's good.
I think you might have to take over, Suzanne.
Sorry. Sorry if I just come in now because I had some technical difficulties. Roger, can you segue me?
Brent, is there any more that you would want to say just to close your presentation? Any key points?
Yes, and look, apologies about that, guys, but yeah, look, I think the key thing for us is that, you know, as we build back on the other side of the pandemic, we do recognise that, you know, staff is a really key point. The infrastructure is a really key point, and we do need to make sure that, you know, what we're experiencing here in Australia, even though we have very low cases, the number one issue is actually now around disruption. So the number one thing that we are trying to address is that people are not wanting to travel long distance or not wanting to travel interstate because of fear of, you know, closing borders or a situation where they're impacted by, you know, quarantine or something of that nature. So even with vaccines coming through, which obviously is very exciting for us, there's just this extra layer of concern that I'm going to be, you know, disrupted. And when it comes to leisure travel, no one wants to be caught and spending time in a hotel quarantining. So I think from our perspective, we need to, the final message, I guess, is just to address, in a marketing sense, we have to address this flexibility. We've seen our national carrier Qantas and Virgin doing that, and we need to make sure that we tell people that these flexible terms and conditions are out there, and that's really important. So I look forward to hopefully one day again welcoming everyone here back to Australia and South Australia. And again, apologies about the technical difficulties. Thank you.
Okay, Brent, thanks very much indeed. Appreciate that perspective. And straight over to Suzanne now to take us into the final part of the session. Suzanne.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I might just, since we're on to the discussion, Brent, I might ask a question to you, because there's obviously the shorter term, like disruptions and uncertainties and so on, but I would like to know how you see the longer term reshaping of tourism, and whether there's maybe a shift for destinations to think a little bit more what tourism can do for the people who live there and for the environment at place, rather than maybe what we in the moment, it's sort of still in some ways the other way around, what can we do to recover tourism. But do you see a shift that is away from that business as usual to really more how can tourism deliver benefits? If you don't mind sharing with us from your perspective.
Of course, yeah, and thank you, Suzanne. I think, look, the number one thing that we're finding at the moment is it's been really interesting working with our tourism operators to switch a lot of their focus from international to a domestic audience. And so from that perspective, I think one of the things that's been an absolute benefit of COVID-19 has been local South Australians and indeed Australians seeing their state and their country perhaps in ways that they've never seen before. You know, you can see the image that's behind me here in Kangaroo Island. Kangaroo Island has been has not been visited by something like 60% of South Australians, but it's an absolute favourite of international guests. So the really exciting thing out of this process, and the way that we're choosing to look at it, is to re-engage and educate with our local and domestic audiences. And what we're finding is that the businesses that have done that and the businesses that have engaged with a domestic and local audience are actually managing to not only survive, but actually thrive, which is a really exciting element.
Excellent, and that's great. And I mean, maybe a question to all the panelists is, and because I'm being my government head here, we're working for the Department of Conservation in New Zealand, we're quite interested in what of these changes are going to stick. So which ones are structural and which ones are just temporary, in that people might travel locally, they might reconnect more with, you know, nature or the communities, but we bounce back to what was there before. If anyone, maybe Royce or Mario, could also comment on, do you see some real structural shifts that will remain permanently, and what are they?
I can start maybe. I see a couple of things. I mean, first, you know, anything to do with sanitizations and health controls and etc. I'm very confident that these are here to stay and remain moving forward. I think we all agree that this is probably unlikely the only crisis we're going to face moving forward in terms of pandemics and etc. So most certainly those will be staying. I think other international organizations are also in the same agreement. When we speak to ICAO or ACI, the Airport Council International, they've actually told us that definitely at airports controls will remain in place. The other shift I think, and we're going to see also, is something that most of the other panelists brought in their discussion too, is domestic tourism. More of a focus from the national tourism boards and various governments on the domestic tourism moving forward is here to stay and continues to grow in many destinations. I think, you know, organizations will likely reorganize themselves to have a mix of international visitors, but also a very strong domestic market.
Thanks for that. I'd add on to that, and I agree. A lot of the conversations we're having around is border management, health controls, as it relates to our airports and our partners. What will be interesting to see is the degree to which testing and health protocols stick over time, or do they begin to slide off as the narrative of the pandemic changes? I think that's the big thing. The other thing is around domestic tourism, and domestic tourism is going to help us, but it won't sustain us. It certainly will, as a city of Vancouver, it will not replace the export revenue that comes into the city. But we know that that's going to take quite a bit of time, because nobody has restarted global air connectivity in the way that we have to do that. So to what degree do we have to focus on domestic tourism, try to maintain some dollars, but at the same time recapture the export revenue? How that's going to shift and change through border management, I don't think we really know yet.
Okay. Now that's good. I guess it's we have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I want to bring the topic to sustainability, and Roger said it, that I guess the new normal or the redesign or whatever we call it has to have sustainability at heart. And some of these shifts that we're seeing now, we need to make sure that they deliver, for example, on the Sustainable Development Goals. And I just saw a question here from Brian about the term visitor economy. And I'm not sure I interpreted correctly or freely in my own way of reading it, but Brian asks here, is the term visitor economy appropriate? And I guess that hints at the fact that maybe we're broadening the triple bottom line to be much more conscious of the environmental imperative, the community needs, and maybe desire and need to participate in decision making. So what about this term visitor economy? Excellent question. Would anyone like to comment on that?
Sure, I don't mind commenting on it. Hatta many years ago we're still using the term tourism economy, but we actually call it the complete visitor economy. And the reason for this is actually that tourism is far beyond. I'm sure you've all been in this situation before. You're trying to explain to your young children or your family members what tourism is all about. Most people will think flights, hotels, tours. But there's much more to it. Farmers working on the countryside, producing the vegetables and meat and etc. for consumption sorry, I've got some flies in my office, are being consumed by the tourists. The entertainment, the services, there's much more to tourism than simply just flight, tours, and hotels. So the complete visitor economy, the impact is much, much larger. And we've certainly seen it and suffered from it here in Thailand, which is a country that actually has a very large contributions to GDP from tourism, that many other sectors have been equally affected. And I suspect it's the same in various countries around the world.
Royce, I think I saw you nod, especially when I started to talk about sustainability.
Yeah, this is the first time trying to find a silver lining in this terrible situation. We've in the past tried to scenario plan in order whether we're trying to protect funding or we're trying to protect businesses. What would happen if you stopped tourism? We're now living in the live evidence of the impact of stopping tourism at a global scale. Meaning that if we look at the destination or the definition of sustainability again, not only is it about the planet, but the sustainability of a community to make a living, the sustainability of the visitor economy, the complete visitor economy. I like that, Dr. Hardy, in terms of not just the direct impact to our usual suspects, but the farmers, the distillers, the brewers, the mechanics. Who keeps the helicopter going that does sightseeing? That's a mechanic. That helicopter doesn't go because there's no visitor economy. That mechanic has no helicopter to work on. So it's giving us the evidence to expand the conversation where decision makers are involved as it relates to tourism policy or those that can impact policy through tourism, a way of looking at this more holistically. And we're hoping that these definitions actually stick as it relates to sustainability.
Yeah, I think that holistic view of tourism as being part of not only the community, but the local economy, interacting with other sectors, that's really something that has come out quite strongly in this crisis. Well, especially when you all of a sudden pull tourism out, it becomes apparent. But, and I'm just checking in with Roger. Are we having 3 minutes left?
We have 3 minutes left.
We have 3 minutes left. So I start to wrap up, but I just pose one question as part of my wrap up, and that's around governance of tourism, because we see this, on the one hand, we obviously have global organizations or regional, in your case, Mario, at the high level of governance and maybe setting the frameworks that we need for the future of tourism. But on the other hand, I see really increasing activity at the destination level. And that's why this panel is so pertinent, that we bring together destination perspectives. And I guess my question that we probably won't get answered now, but can think about is how do we develop a really good functioning system? And Roger, you call it, this is the vertical integration between sort of self-determination and at place and appropriate for place tourism. Yeah. And the global and maybe national frameworks. I think that will be in some ways the key challenge, but also the opportunity for tourism to get it right. And of course, I have to emphasize again the importance of sustainability as part of that. Triple bottom line, sustainable development goals, how can tourism deliver on those and not just to itself? So that's probably my closing in a nutshell, Roger. I pass it over to you for an absolute final word.
Thank you very much indeed, Suzanne. And thank you to all of the panelists. I think we've had some really good presentations and interesting discussions about key topics. And there's a lot of common interest here. I think we were seeing many issues, common issues, but issues from different perspectives. So I think that's all very good, very helpful. We had only an hour to cover a subject which could have been the subject for a whole conference. But I hope that we've made a good start, and maybe we can come back to it again in the future when we've got more time available. So from me, from all of the panelists, Thank you to all of those who were listening to the session. I hope you found it interesting, enjoyable, and fulfilling. I will conclude the session now and hand back to Mariana.
Well, what to say? Big thank you to everyone. It was a really insightful presentation delivered by all of you. I think you have given us a lot of food for thought.
I'm just going to jump in because the session's cut off for everybody now. We went over time.
Okay,
So
no worries. Well,
It's a
it's chance to say a big thank you. It doesn't have to be live. I know it was a big pressure. Time was running, but I think you did a very good job. And thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
John,
everyone.
Royce, Mario,
Bye for now.
Roger.
Appreciate it.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.